Hello everybody and welcome to another Doctor Who review. This time we're reviewing in Who Month a trilogy. 3 Peter Davison 5th Doctor stories, and we start with the first of the Guardian Trilogy, Mawdryn Undead. As is the case for all the classic Doctor Who story reviews, I have with me the television companion. Let's see what it says of the plot of Mawdryn Undead. The Black Guardian recruits a young man named Turlough to assassinate the Doctor. Although outwardly an ordinary pupil at a boys' private boarding school, Turlough is in fact an alien who believes that the Guardian will return him home if he succeeds. The TARDIS meanwhile has its instruments jammed by a mysterious signal and is forced to materialise on board a massive spaceship in fixed orbit. The Doctor discovers that the signal, a beam to guide the ship's transmat capsule, is being transmitted from Earth. He travels down to the planet in the capsule, leaving Nyssa and Tegan in the TARDIS with the coordinates preset to follow. Things go wrong, however, as the Doctor arrives in 1983, but the TARDIS materialises in 1977. Tegan and Nyssa encounter a man with a badly burned body and think that this could be the Doctor. Tegan goes for medical aid and runs into the Doctor's old friend the Brigadier, now retired from UNIT and working as a maths teacher at the school. They join Nyssa, and at the mysterious stranger's urging, use the TARDIS to travel up to the spaceship. The stranger is actually Mawdryn, one of a group of aliens travelling endlessly in a state of perpetual regeneration brought upon themselves through the use of a stolen Time Lord device. The Doctor takes Turlough and the 1983 version of the Brigadier up to the ship in the transmat capsule. He reluctantly agrees to supply from his own body the energy needed to end the mutant's ordeal, even though this will mean the loss of his remaining regenerations. In the event, however, the energy comes not from the Doctor, but from an explosion caused when the two Brigadiers meet. So in Season 20, which is seen as a celebration of Doctor Who's history, all the way from Arc of Infinity through to the 5 Doctors, this is the 3rd story of the season, and it's the first of the Guardian Trilogy, starring Peter Davison as Doctor, with Janet Fielding as Tegan, Sarah Sutton as Nyssa, Mark Strickson as Turlough, and a guest appearance of Nicholas Courtney as the Brigadier. So I'll go through the characters first, describe what I think of them. There's quite a list, so I'll go through the more major ones, as I tend to do nowadays. And then we'll go into some of the bits I like about the plot, some of the bits I don't like, and all the production bits and pieces as well. So we have the 5th Doctor, Peter Davison. What Davison gets for lines, he doesn't put foot wrong, he acts it perfectly. All the Doctors tend to do that. I'm not sure whether Peter Grimwade, who has written for Doctor Who as for the 5th Doctor multiple times, I don't know whether he actually gets the Doctor that well. Every time Grimwade has written for the 5th Doctor, the character seems to be a little bit different. It's a bit odd, the way it comes across. When it comes to Time Flight, the concept's idea, but the thing's a mess, and I'll go into that when we get to that review. You might have a bad rating for that one when I finally get to review it. Here, he seems to have got who the 5th Doctor is, but goes on the side of the Doctor being swept away from the events more than actually the action side of the 5th Doctor, the side of the 5th Doctor that's, wanting to push things forward. He really is caught in events here. There's nothing wrong with the way the Doctor is played, there's nothing wrong with the way the Doctor reacts, but I think maybe the way the Doctor's characterised in this is maybe not as good as it could have been for such a story. I think you need a Doctor with a little bit more purpose in this one, and this Doctor has been swept away by events a little bit, caught up with the TARDIS going back and forth between the ship and the public school in 77 and 83. Overall, it's a slightly wishy-washy character of the Doctor. It's not the greatest performance. It's a good performance of Peter Davison, but it's not the greatest characterisation of the 5th Doctor. There's other stories that the 5th Doctor does in this season which work a lot better. This isn't one of them, and it kind of falls down a little bit and kind of brings down the whole story when the lead isn't given as much to do to put his meat and bone on the character as he normally would. It's kind of like some of the later Matt Smith stories where the writing's a bit light for the Doctor characterization. It relies on the actor who plays the Doctor to put the meat and bones onto it. And that's very much what I think has happened here with Peter Davison's portrayal in this story. I think it's very much Peter Davison putting forward his character, and Peter Davison's a good actor, and he covers it, but you can tell it's not quite the way they can write for the Doctor. We then got Tegan, played by Janet Fielding. Seems to have the most to do of the TARDIS crew, of Tegan, Nyssa and the Doctor. I love the fact that Tegan is the one who meets with the Brigadier and has the kind of foresight and the drive to try and get some help for what they think is the Doctor in the TARDIS at that time, but it's Mawdryn. And speaks to the Brigadier, and she seems to be the one that's in the driving seat, really, of the plot lines. Tegan that tends to be driving most of the plot for the first 2 episodes, and it's only where she only really goes back when the Doctor has to become more part of the plot later on, when it comes to him giving up his regenerations to help kill these alien mutants. I think that's an interesting concept itself. I'll come back to it, but the idea of the story and the way that it's portrayed by Janet Fielding, she acts it quite well. I do like the touch where Tegan actually thanks the Doctor for trying to save their lives, because Tegan and Nyssa are affected by the same virus or same condition that Mawdryn is having with time, which is interesting. Nice little touch, and it kind of gives a human side to Tegan instead of this mouth on legs persona that Tegan seems to have. Sarah Sutton, on the other hand, with Nyssa. I always like Nyssa. Nyssa's intelligence about this transmatter and her information is there early on, her knowledge, but she's a bit of a feckless companion here. She's like the odd one out. It's kind of like that Nyssa always gets pushed to the side a little bit when it comes to three companions in the TARDIS, and again she seems to be a bit more pushed out here, and it's a shame because Sarah Sutton does a good performance with whatever she gets. She doesn't seem to get much here. She's more the control of the TARDIS because they rely on on Nyssa's knowledge of the TARDIS and her scientific background, and she seems a bit more naive about the whole Mawdryn situation. Tegan's a bit more suspicious, but overall Sarah Sutton does a good go at this, but Nyssa is kind of underwritten here, and it shows, and it's a shame because Nyssa's a good character overall, one of my favourite companions, but they don't do her justice in this one. They just don't. It's just one of these things. Good start for Mark Strickson and Turlough, though. I think it's a nice little beginning of the character. He's very good at manipulating people. You see that when he's speaking to Hippo. You see it when he's speaking to the headmaster. You see his manipulation with the Brigadier and the Doctor to an extent. Mark Strickson's very good at those kind of manipulative sides of the character, and I quite like the way that Mark Strickson's portrayed here in the story, and the way that portrays it here, and the way that Turlough is set up as well. It's an interesting character. The initial premise of working for the Black Guardian killing the Doctor is kind of swayed a little bit halfway through, and then the Black Guardian goes, I need you to actually be my slave to help the bigger issue of this time thing with the 2 Brigadiers. It's really interesting how that all works out. But overall, Turlough's an interesting character. He then starts to lose the character that that's appreciative later on in the season, which is a bit disappointing. But it's a good start for Turlough, good start for Mark Strickson as the character. And we really don't get a solving of some of the mysteries that are laid here about what happened to his parents and things like that, because they had master messages at one point, until his last story in Planet of Fire in the next season. So yeah, it's an interesting take, and I like the way Turlough's portrayed here, but I think the writing's better for him, but it does sacrifice some of the other main cast a little bit for Turlough to be the interesting character here. What's a good role, and is still unflappable as ever, is Nicholas Courtney as the Brigadier. The idea of the Brigadier being 2 versions, and the way they do that with the costume, is quite nice. You do get the sense that Nicholas Courtney doesn't have an idea what the hell's going on. I think that kind of confusion that the Brigadier has in both versions, the 77 more militaristic type and the more relaxed teacher type of 83, you can see there's a bit of confusion in the back of Courtney's head in this one. He's kind of perplexed about what the plot is, doesn't quite understand it. But as always, Nicholas Courtney is really solid. whatever he gets, he plays to a T, and it really is endearing seeing the character come back the way he has, and it's really quite nice to see. I quite like it. We then have the Black Guardian, played by Valentine Dial, not Dow, which I said in Key to Time reviews. It's interesting, evil character. He puts dollops of evil in it. The voice is there. It's nice to see him have a bit more of a part, although it is more of a speaking and standing, looking menacing part than actually have any physical action. But then again, with the Guardian supposed to be this physical being, it's interesting how that comes across. It's quite good the way it's portrayed. I think the Guardian is a nice little character. I love the fact the Guardian recognises I'm not just going to be evil to kill the Doctor. He realises when there's other things that are going wrong, like the two Brigadiers meeting together and causing that temple anomaly that everybody's concerned about in the second half of the story. The Black Guardian swept in with that, which is really nice to see, and I quite like the way that comes across. It's really nice. We then have David Collins as Mawdryn. I think David Collins is a very good take here. I think it's a nice little character. Obviously, David Collins is probably better known for playing in Robots of Death as the main engineer. I can't remember his name now. But David Collins is a very good actor, and it's played very well. I quite like the way that David Collins puts himself across here as Mawdryn. This kind of scientist who's maybe not necessarily wholly evil, but has thought through the plan a bit more. He's not a big bad. This story doesn't really have a big bad. You've got the Guardian, but he's more menacing than the big bad. David Collins plays Mawdryn very well. I quite like the way it's portrayed here. And this manipulation that Mawdryn has, that nice little layer, actually does work quite well. And I think I quite like it, the way it's been portrayed. And he's certainly the best of the other guest casts that we have here of all the other characters. The rest are kind of slightly there as plot lines. You've got Ibbotson, or Ibbo as he's called, played by Stephen Garlick. But the interesting one is Angus Mackay, who's back as the headmaster this time. Last time we saw Angus Mackay, he was playing the Barusa. So it's quite nice seeing him back in a slightly different role. Very small role, but it still helps build the scene of the school and make it look like there are people in the school. It's quite nice. I quite like the way it's put across. Okay, some good bits here. The fact that Peter Grimwade has actually put in some realism in regards to the Brigadier's condition and the fact he had a nervous breakdown, which seems to have happened off the back of the events that we later see in the story. That's an interesting development of the Brigadier's characterization. You can tell, though, it probably was supposed to be written for another former Doctor Who alumni. It was supposed to be written for William Russell, but he couldn't do it for whatever reason. I'm not sure why. But it was William Russell that was supposed to be... it was supposed to be Ian Chesterton that came back because he was a school teacher. But the idea of having a military man then become a school teacher in a private public school is an interesting idea, and I quite like the way it's put across. I think it works quite well in that respect. That's a nice little point. The idea of this ship that's travelling through and these scientists that have tried to manipulate stolen Time Lord technology, and it's caused them to just constantly regenerate, and the condition is perpetually debilitating, is interesting. I think that's an intriguing concept. It's maybe not realised as it should be, but it is an interesting concept. I've mentioned Turlough's an interesting character. I think the Brigadier works quite well on this. Overall, it's a bit confusing the way it's written. There's not really major highlights in this one, to be fair. It's very much A to B plotting, A to B to C to B to A to D to B to C to A. It's the plot lines are all over the place at parts. It's an interesting concept with Peter Grimwade. I think it probably needed a better budget to make it work better, because I think there's only so much you can say and exposit. You probably need a bit more of the visual element here for this story to make it work better. It does make it more confusing to watch. It's not the most engaging watch. It is a bit plodding and dragging. I think it probably be better as a two-parter more than a four. The threads come together more or less in the third episode, and the fourth episode is more the fact of the Doctor having a crisis whether he's going to go ahead and actually help Mawdryn and sacrifice himself. That's an interesting point. I quite like the way that's put across, and I think it works quite well, the Doctor's dilemma we have here, and I quite like the way that's put across. I think the direction with Peter Moffat is actually okay. It's steady enough, but Peter Moffat kind of has sometimes the issue of action not being his greatest thing. He's more for the actual set drama and the slow pacing of stuff. State of Decay, it works quite well. Here, it doesn't work quite as well, and it misses a few beats, I think. I think the scripting kind of lets down the story. I think that's the biggest thing. The scripting lets down. One of the good things is Paddy Kingsland's incidental score. You know I rave with Paddy Kingsland's stuff. He's really good at the way he does it. I think the whole theming round there with the music, the motifs he got through it, is very, very intriguing. His guitars are there, which is great. He's got this percussion there as well. Paddy Kingsland's very good with the percussion. It's one of the big things of the early radiophonic workshop composers of the 80s. Paddy Kingsland's very much more with his percussion, which I like, and his guitar. And I do like every incidental score that's done by Paddy Kingsland. This is no exception. It actually brings up the story a little bit for me in regards to the jeopardy and the way things work because of that, and I think it's quite good to have that, and I quite like it for that. Overall, though, it's all right. It's not take your brain out, because you do need your brain to follow, but it does, because the plot is a bit all over the place, it doesn't work as well as it could do. And for that, I'm going to give it a rating of 3 TARDISes out of 5. Okay, let's see how Mawdryn Undead stacks up with the rest of the 5th Doctor stories I've reviewed so far, and how it stacks up within the rest of the stories I've reviewed for the TV series so far. Mawdryn Undead sits in with 2 other stories in the Peter Davison era with 3 TARDISes out of 5. They are Arc of Infinity and Fort Doomsday. The best rated story of the 5th Doctor's era so far is The Case of Androzani with 4.5 TARDISes out of 5. Overall, there are still 2 stories at the bottom with 2.5 TARDISes out of 5. They are Timelash and Sleep No More, and at the top, including The Case of Androzani with 4.5 TARDISes out of 5, are The Happiness Patrol, Inferno, The Day of the Doctor, The Tomb of the Cybermen, Dalek, and The End of Time. That's it. Thank you very much, guys, for watching this Doctor Who review. Tell me what you think about Mawdryn Undead. Did you like it? Leave a comment down below. Did you not like it? Leave a comment down below. Just tell me. Let me know. If you like this video, please like it, share it with the hashtag Teamstructor, and hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so you know when a new video comes out. General rule, new video every Sunday at 4 PM GMT, which is what's happening this time round. I review Terminus next week at Sunday 4 PM GMT. Hopefully you can join me for that. But until next time, guys, thank you very much for watching as always. And do you know what? I shall see you later.